Our next speaker loves rooftop bars, the view from Waterloo Bridge and getting on a plane, but loathes odd socks, bad food and slow walkers. I hear you, sister. Fun fact, she used to be a yoga teacher in India. Please welcome to the stage, Sophie Taylor.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you all for having me here. It's great to see a lot of friendly faces in the audience. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm Sophie Taylor. I've been a producer in the screen industry for over 20 years. I started in live action and then mainly worked in post and visual effects, did a little dabble in experiential design and live events. I've been a visual effects producer in short form and also long form shows, films like X-Men or TV series like Netflix's The Witcher. I have a passion for emerging technology and what it can do to enhance creativity and problem solve. I really believe that the limit of human creativity is only capped by our ability to execute it. As James Cameron famously said, he had to wait 15 years to be able to create his audacious vision for Avatar. He was pushing the boundaries of what CG could do then, and he still is now. I am not a creator, as Jimmy and this presentation will attest. But my role at Nano Studios as head of production is to use my previous experiences to bring together artists and innovators and help them achieve their most brilliant ideas. I encourage upskilling and developing of our own internal teams, but also spend time with external artists and production crews, teaching them about virtual production and in-camera visual effects. I do a little bit of work with Fixed Screen and some other education institutions to make sure that the next generation of screen creators have access to this technology. So Nano Studios, where I work now, was born 12 years ago in Los Angeles. They started with simple traditional stages and green screen stages. We're now a fully integrated, state-of-the-art production ecosystem, really, with performance capture studios and volumes. Our LED stages have been built by experts with a wealth of knowledge in engineering, visual effects, and we're known for our innovation in LED technology, really trying to push the boundaries of what we can do to enhance visual storytelling through in-camera visual effects. Our goal really is to democratize this tech and make the workflow more accessible for all kinds of scales of projects. And we're always R&Ding ways to optimize and streamline those processes so they're more accessible and affordable. In 2022, at the beginning of 2022, NANT announced its global expansion with the building of 2 volume stages here in Melbourne at Docklands. And this is kind of how that went. So those 2 stages you can see here. Stage 3 is made up of over 1,600 tiles, ruby row tiles with a 2.3 pixel pitch, which quick maths, is about 22,000 pixels all the way around. It's a horseshoe, U shape. It's actually dead hung from the ceiling. And we use this stage a lot for car process and SimTrav, but it's a really good size for most exterior or interior environments or sets. We shoot both long form scenes for TV and film, but also short form commercials there. Although the smaller of the two stages we've got, it is still a very large volume stage by global standards. It was the biggest one in the Southern Hemisphere until we built the other one. It's very similar in scale to the type of stages that would have had The Mandalorian or Thor, Love and Thunder, similar kind of canvas size. And then stage one, that is over 4,000 tiles of BP2, which is the most common LED tile with a 2.8 pixel pitch. And that's over 32,000 pixels. It's a J shape, which means you've got a long flat and then a continuous curve. It's ground supported and standing at 12 meters tall. It's the largest independently owned volume for film and television in the world. It works really well for large exterior sets and cinematic wides. And really, it's a masterclass in cable management. Both stages have two plug walls or wild walls, and the ceilings are made up of modular pods of panels which can be tilted and rotated to push light into different areas of the volume and to create a seamless canvas from the ceiling to the roof. So why do people use virtual production? It's exploded in popularity in the past few years. It really is a multidisciplinary nexus of tech, gamecraft, film, and camera operations, and it comes together to really change what's been typically possible to achieve on screen. This technique mainly uses game engines for real-time rendering with other experiential technologies such as virtual reality or augmented reality to create interactive and immersive environments on set. So this blend of technology and creativity allows filmmakers to visualize and modify scenes ongoingly live on the shoot. Virtual production is a growing part of film and television, but it's still often thought of as really only being suitable for big budget sci-fi or world-building shows, like The Mandalorian, again, which really pioneered that technique and is quite famous for it. But it is really good for real-world scenarios as well. Things that traditional filmmaking can be challenging, like simulated travel, dangerous locations, hard-to-reach locations, or if you need to control for time of day or weather. Endless sunsets is something we do a lot of. You can have 10 hours of golden hour if you shoot in a volume. Gone fast. Examples, there we go. So the goal of any production using virtual production is to try and create as photoreal experience as possible. So you're trying to integrate the practical art department with the practical lighting and the digital content and the light that emits from those LEDs. If you were shooting green screen, for example, you'd be trying to avoid all kinds of reflective surfaces or water because all that green is going to fly around a set, and you're going to control the lighting to minimize green spill. When you're shooting with digital environments and virtual production, the opposite is true. You can really lean into reflective surfaces. A couple of examples here. At the top, you've got the Batman on the left. That was a set that they deliberately did a wet down for to get those reflections. And the digital part, the city of Gotham in the background, reflects into the scene, and it really helps make it feel like you're in that scene and you're on location. I know I've touched on Mando a couple of times, but I mean, this show really was designed for VP. Our hero in his shiny metallic reflective suit would have been an absolute nightmare for green screen cleanup. 1899 and Our Flag Means Death are two shows that were both set predominantly on boats on the water, surrounded by ocean. 1899 was filmed during the height of COVID when no one could travel, and all of their environments were full CG 3D. However, on Our Flag Means Death, they used 2D plates. If you're interested to learn more about how content gets used for virtual production. I really recommend looking at those behind-the-scenes videos. They do a really good job explaining how and why they use them. So the future. A recent investigation into the use of VP across multiple markets, film and TV, and through to esports and other uses, estimated the value of the market was about $3.37 billion US dollars in 2024, and it's projected to grow to over 10 billion by 2032. Use of virtual production harnesses other emerging tech and machine learning, the use of generative AI. It is the future. And big players, Sony, Arri, Autodesk, Blackmagic, to name a few, they're all investing very heavily in it. It's a bit of an arms race. Another consideration that larger productions and studios have is sustainability. Netflix and NBCU have increasing sustainability targets, and it's not just preferable to have sustainable practices, it's now essential for business investment. So they're leaning into this as virtual production is a greener method of film production. It reduces travel. Digital sets mean that you're not flying all over the world. It also reduces the amount of art department and props, which create a huge amount of waste. I know you're probably thinking we draw a lot of power for the LED, and that is true. There is a lot of power it takes to run massive volume. But with the use of renewables, for example, at Dockland Studios, they run on 100% renewable power. So if power is your biggest environmental footprint, we can really reduce how much carbon we're creating. So it is greener. Yeah, good. Wrong button. At Net Studios, as I said, building stages is a huge part of what we do, but both at our LA stages and here in Melbourne, we also host events, live broadcasts, fundraisers, art and video installations, product launches, all kinds of things. But our primary business is still in the screen industry, and we create content and operate shoots for commercials, film, and television. A lot of the bigger shows that you may have heard have been shooting at Docklands are not out in the world yet, so I'm not able to show you things from them. But this is a little showreel of some of the work that we've done across the two sites in the past year or so. I just want to give you a little bit more detail on one of those projects and why VP was chosen as the production solution for a particular scene and how it was put together. The Windcatcher was an Australian family film that came out earlier this year. It was a co-collaboration between Stan and the Australian Children's Television Foundation. It starred Jessica Mauboy and newcomer Lennox Monaghan as our hero, Percy Boy. It's a really beautiful Australian story of a young Indigenous boy who, with the help of his friends, trains to win the local sports day and discovers his supernatural ability to see lost souls, which was a gift passed down from his grandfather. In the scene that we worked on, which really explains the title of the movie Windcatcher, Percy Boy must overcome his fears and prove his resilience to save himself and his friends from a bushfire. It was a crucial plot point in the movie, but fire and children and stunts are some serious production challenges to overcome. But in the volume, we could create a safe bushfire using shot plates. These were plates from the location that they shot pre-burn for other scenes that were enhanced with fire and smoke effects. And then with those on the wall, there was additional special effects, propane fire bars, plus smoke machines and wind. And then there was still the stunt. The stunt rig was able to be hung in the volume, and then the jump performed for real. So the only post really required was the cleanup of that rig and wire. This is the final scene in the movie.
Don't trip! Lift your feet! Don't trip! Lift your feet! Don't give up, Percy Boy! Come on! You can do it, Percy Boy! Lift your feet! You can do it! What's he doing? Yeah! Daisy, quick, get in! This should block the flames from getting in.
It's very sweet. So what does it take to build a team for a big virtual production show? Behind the scenes, obviously, there's a lot of production and a lot of IT and tech, but there's also the specialist roles that create the content and operate the volume stage. At the top of that tree are our virtual production supervisors. The VP Soups really oversee the integration of the real-time visual effects or digital environments with the live action and practical set. Their responsibilities really encompass all of the technical and creative requirements. Then the other two teams, loosely, you've got content, so you've got the people creating, the artists creating the content, the 3D assets or real-time renders or 2D plates, and then you've got the operators who are actually driving that content on the wall and manipulating it live on the shoot day. And then you've got the stage team, which is made up of LED technicians who are looking after the wall, and then also our camera team who are working with the production camera and all the motion capture system on the stage as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specifics of these roles, but I'll just show you a little bit of our team at work.
Where did
So the role of virtual production supervisor really is to actively engage with the director and the DOP to ensure that all the virtual workflows are enhancing the cinematic experience and streamlining the creative. They also oversee the capture of plates and the creation of content. Louise is out in the field here on a plate shoot. We have two very talented VP supervisors at NANT. Louisa Bremner is not just one of our supervisors, but she's also our head of real-time content. And she started her journey in this field working in Unreal Engine, initially in extended reality and in gaming. She now boasts a very prestigious list of credits with House of Dragon, Matrix, Death on the Nile, and others. She actually has a PhD in augmented reality, which makes me feel very silly at times. Dr. Bremner, as we should probably call her, really has got great expertise in a range of associated virtual production workflows, such as virtual scouting or simulcam or mixed reality. And then Oscar is our other supervisor. He started his career in live action on the sets, like I did, and then moved into visual effects and compositing. He worked with DNEG and then spent quite time with ILM and Stagecraft during that big virtual production expansion. He most recently was working on Thor, Love and Thunder before joining us at NANT. Our VP Soups are constantly pushing the envelope and developing new skills with the team and services that we can offer our clients. For example, at the moment we're working on color calibration pipelines and trying to establish best practices for plate shooting. To content. There are really two types of content. We divide it really into two types of content for the virtual art department, the VAD. Real-time 3D content is created using gaming engines, so usually Unreal Engine. I know Unity are looking into it as well, and then some other proprietary gaming engines. These are some examples of content that our team have built. Some interiors, diners, and a futuristic robotics lab. Then you've got forest roads, cityscapes, and then that's Everest Base Camp. Most of our artists come from gaming and are experienced in other virtual technologies, but alternatively they do come from a more traditional visual effects, CG, motion design, animation background, because there's a lot of transferable skills, so they can move into real time if they want, and sometimes we build teams where we've got technical artists and then the CG artists working together. A really good eye for lighting and textures is so important because it's the area that is the most challenging, especially when working in Unreal, and it's what all productions are asking for. Leaning into natural environments usually gets a better result. Organic natural environments are easier. The building blocks for a lot of these environments are usually LiDAR scans or photogrammetry, and then of course there's a wealth of library assets out there, Quixel and Epic Marketplace, and they're really helpful for quickly kit bashing and throwing things together. Then 2D. The alternative to working real time in 3D is to have just 2D plates. And when I say 2D plates, that could be rendered 3D. You could build environments and then render them out for the scene. Or they can be shot plates, HDRs, or stitched 360 plates. Rendered worlds could be real world. I mean, rendered scenes could be real world, or they could also be abstract motion design. The main difference for the artist, I think, is in the delivery and the output, because instead of working maybe to 4K, as you might in traditional post or for broadcast, we need our renders at 12K or 16K to look good on the wall. And we're also rendering out spherical renders most of the time as well. And then all of this, it's a lot of pixels and a lot of compute power. Most commonly, rather than rendering out scenes, we do use shot plates and augment those. It's one of the quickest ways to create photoreal environments. 360 driving plates are commonly used for SimTrav, and we do a lot of car process work. People often associate volume work with SimTrav. But then HDR environment plates for multiple locations or hard-to-reach locations can be a good way of getting a production to move around the world on a budget. Whether a production or a show chooses to use 3D real-time or 2D, or sometimes a combination of the two, some kind of 2.5D display, really depends on the final aesthetic they want for the look of the show, the time they have to invest in building these assets before the shoot, what kind of shots they want, and ultimately usually comes down to budget. So once the content has been created, it needs to get pushed to the wall. Our content operators are responsible for controlling and projecting and manipulating the content on the wall during a shoot. For 3D real-time, like I said, we're usually working in Unreal. For 2D or 2.5D, we could be working in either Disguise or in Pixera. It's a technical artist's role and involves a lot of validating and optimizing of the content. Individuals in this role sometimes are called virtual production TDs, or collectively known as the brain bar. And usually they come from compositing backgrounds, working in Nuke and similar programs, or from gaming again. It's quite a high-pressure role, and not all artists are suited to it, in that on the stage, on the shoot day, they're taking information from the camera feeds, from the motion capture system, and whatever the content's doing, responding to instruction from our VP supervisor, who in turn is fielding requests from the DOP or the director or the art director. So then into stage, camera and tracking. When we're working in 3D or in 2.5D, where we need to have the correct position of the production camera in 3D space to ensure correct parallax and allow us to make frustums. Just checking everybody knows a frustum. The frustum is a region of the virtual world that you can see through the camera. It's basically the viewpoint of the camera as it moves around the volume. And this is done by using an optical motion capture system. At the top of the volume over there, you can see all the little cameras at the edge of the roof. And those cameras are all looking for the little white markers, these white balls, on what we call a Sputnik crown, which is attached to the main production camera. Physloggers collect all the camera data and lens data, the focus, the iris and the zoom, and also collect that positional data from the mocap cameras, and that is all fed back into the engine or whatever system we're using to push the content in real time. This means that as the camera moves around the stage, the digital content adjusts, the frustum or the viewpoint of the camera adjusts so that both the lens and the position of it are correct for the virtual 3D space. It's a very technical role, and a strong understanding of lensing and cameras and 3D tracking is essential. Most of our team have either come from traditional camera departments or may have also come from other mocap roles like performance capture. And then there's the actual stage technicians themselves. They are responsible for maintaining all of these LED panels, as well as moving plug walls and the ceiling pods. Each volume is made up of thousands of LED tiles that all need to be kept operating optimally. They're usually LED engineers and would have had a knowledge of video signals and projection. LED panels aren't as new as virtual production and have been used for quite a while in stage theatre productions or sporting events, concerts, that kind of thing. So most of our LED technicians have come from that area, or sometimes they might have come from lighting and rigging, because there's a lot of crossover there as well. So, there are challenges when working with such a multidisciplinary team, and ultimately those challenges come down to diversity. And don't get me wrong, diversity is a good thing, but it doesn't mean it comes without challenges. So what do I mean by diversity? Industry experience. Obviously, I've touched upon here, a lot of our team have come from very varied industry backgrounds, gaming, film, live events, and the expectations of a workplace, the kind of hours you work and how interpersonal interactions happen can be very different for maybe game developers as opposed to, your rugged concert crews. There can be a clash of cultures. Again, Where am I going? Demographic. Yep. So we've got a really broad range of ages and life stages in our relatively small team, and balancing those varying needs of the crew while keeping us operational all the time can be tricky. Some of the team, it might be their first professional role, and then you've got other, middle-aged Gen Xers with kids at home. There isn't a one-size-fits-all culture that looks after everyone and gives them the opportunity for work-life balance or to prevent burnout. So we find ourselves having to cater to people and their individual needs. Common language is another one. The terminology that we use for film and camera is quite different in some cases from what we would use in visual effects or gaming. And the immersive tech, again, has different languages, sometimes for very similar things. Finding a common language for virtual production is actually an ongoing discussion in the industry. And it's tricky because it's a constantly evolving field as well. But we are trying to create industry standards. But each team member needs to understand how their piece of the puzzle works well enough that they can explain it to their other team members in an easy to understand and universal language. Communication. All workplaces have challenges with communication, and especially in our creative and tech industries, I think we have a higher proportion of neurodivergencies in our teams, and it makes it especially important to make sure that everybody is receiving instruction and information in a way that makes sense to them, whether it's written or verbal. We have multiple channels for internal comms, and we're always reviewing them and refining them to make them as efficient and effective as possible. In a relatively niche and fast-paced industry like virtual production, in order to reap the benefits of that broad range of collective knowledge, we must create an inclusive and safe environment for people to speak their minds and also to be understood. Many benefits to a diverse team. They say birds of a feather flock together, and my experience as well, if you only work with people from your own discipline, you can end up with a bit of an echo chamber effect. Drawing from our team's varied and different experiences and backgrounds means that we can bring fresh perspective to things, fresh thinking, especially when problem solving. We always try to be solutions focused. Because we're such a small team, no one in the team has got the same set of skills or the same set of experience exactly. So there's not much internal competition. We all have to collaborate in order to achieve things. There's also a huge opportunity for personal development. There's exposure to other adjacent workflows and expertise, and gives rise to the opportunity for our crew to diversify their skills and to upskill and develop new competencies. Overall, this makes us a pretty dynamic and constantly evolving team. Every production that we work on brings with it new challenges and teaches us something new. It gives us a new problem to solve. The feedback from these shows is usually what informs the next area that we want to develop. And I believe that, with the right combination of communication and protecting a good workplace culture, a diverse and multidisciplinary team can be the perfect storm for innovation. At NANT Studios, we're constantly evolving and innovating. And so there is a project that we have been working on for the past 18 months, which got released to the public domain only a few days ago. It's a next generation of LED walls, a self-configuring, movable wall. And I'll show you that. that's pretty much everything that I wanted to get through. But I really wanted to emphasize that it's a very exciting area to work in. Every project is different. Every day throws up new challenges. And I think that there's real opportunity for people to lean into it. I know that sometimes there is this fear of new technologies and what they might do to the potential for employability. And I know that AI is an ongoing point of discussion, both in the industry and in the education centre. But I do think there's, I think with the right attitude, we can all, we can innovate and evolve together, and you still need the human element to make all of it work. I really hope that I have managed to confer my passion for virtual production and this emerging tech. I think it offers artists and technicians opportunity for new challenges. I also really want to thank my team. I couldn't have done this presentation without them. They collected photos and made videos and shared their knowledge. So thank you. I think you all here. If you are interested in following the Nant Studios journey, you can do that at nantstudios.com or any of our socials. And if there's anybody here who'd like to talk to me about how their skills might be used for virtual production, and please do reach out. You can reach me on that QR code at LinkedIn. That's it. Thank you.